Hello, everybody. Andy Goldberg here. Welcome back to the Founders Chair podcast. Very excited to have on the show today Andrew Morrison, bid expert. Andrew, welcome to the Founders Chair.
Thank you, Andy.
Really looking forward to hearing your business story. Andrew, can we just hear a little bit about your personal story? First of all, where you're from, where you live, your hobbies when you're not at work, that sort of thing.
Yeah, certainly. So I'm quite Scottish. Sort of lived in a number of different parts of Scotland. The first 5 years of my life were in Glasgow, where my late father came from. My mother, who's still alive, comes from the Outer Hebrides. So we moved there when I was 5 years of age, and I was there until the age of 10. After that, I grew up in Perth, and I lived for 12 years in central Scotland in Stirlingshire. And then my wife and I moved to North Berwick in East Lothian 20 years ago. So kind of worked my way around Scotland.
Yeah, and all nice parts of the world, really. Um, and what do you get up to when you're not?
Yes, pretty much.
What are you doing when you're not working?
Well, as you might be able to see behind me, I'm in a music room. This is my wife's music room here, and she teaches the piano and the violin. So usually about 3:30, 4 o'clock, I've got to get out of this room and move to the dining room for her pupils. So that actually ends up being a bit of our spare time as well, that we go to, sort of musical concerts, recitals, etc. We're also very much into travel. So, going quite a lot to the Hebrides, but also to quite a number of different parts of the world. Last year we were at New York, Niagara Falls, and Toronto, so that was a very
Nice.
enjoyable. And we've got a trip planned next year to the other side of the world, to New Zealand.
Wow, lovely. It's good that you're able to find the time to get around and go to far-reaching places. It's part of being a business owner and entrepreneur is the freedom to get to do those things, I guess. But we're going to find out more about how you got there. Can we start at the start, Andrew? When you first went into business for yourself, what drove that decision, and what gave you the confidence to go out on your own?
Yeah, so I think I was quite old to start my own business. I started it at the age of 47, a company called AM Bid. I'd realized probably for a number of years that I wanted to do this. And I found sometimes I was employed in organizations and I would be coming up with ideas and, thinking that they could generate more money by doing things a different way, for example. And I just thought, you know what, it's time I just put my money where my mouth is, and let's just see how good you are when you try and go out there yourself. So, um, also bidding, bidding and tendering was something that more and more of the public sector procurement was coming out, to provide opportunities for small businesses to bid. And I thought they need some help with bidding. So that was another reason why I thought, that there is a bit of a niche here that I can step into.
I mean, we could get into this a little bit further down the conversation, but just in general, do you find companies do need help with bids? Like, do you look at their current tendering process and think, no wonder you don't win as much work as you want? Do you see a lot of that?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a bit of a kind of art, successful bidding, and particularly for the medium-sized enterprise, they're often up against larger companies, and the larger companies have big teams, quite often several people, sometimes, very large teams that actually write the bids. And of course, a small business is not going to have that luxury. So that's where they can just bring, I guess the word
Yeah.
nowadays is fractional sometimes. They can just bring somebody in for a fraction of the time that is needed and get a similar result, sometimes even a better
Yeah.
result just by bringing that expert in.
So tell us a little bit about your business then. What exactly do you do and who do you do it for?
Yeah, so I had a business that I started called AM Bid, and I grew that to be Scotland's largest and one of the UK's leading bid and tender specialists. So I sold that business after 9 years. What that did was, as you know, as it says in the tin, it helped organisations with bidding to win work. So now it's just me. It's Andrew Morrison, bid expert. So I will advise a company on how they can win work through the bidding process, and sometimes even take, working with them, helping them to write the bid and not just the bid, but the whole win strategy, sometimes helping them commercially to appreciate what is needed to actually get that bid over the line.
And I guess that's really your only success criteria is whether they win the bid or not, whether they win
Yeah,
the work.
Yeah, ultimately, the journey they go on sometimes is that they have to sometimes improve their business. So, for example, they may have to get certain certifications and accreditations to make them more credible. It could be their website, which is a company generally is a company's shop window, is perhaps not presenting the best image of them. So, I will take a look at their whole business and advise them. It could be that the relationships aren't there. So maybe they need to start getting closer to the type of clients that they want to win work from. So I try to look at it in the round.
So so it's not just the proposal itself. It's not just the tender. It's the whole appearance of the company, the reputation, the relationships. We can't just blame the bid expert always.
No, it's down to them as well. So I guess it is a bit like a coach. And if somebody wanted to run the marathon, so if I wanted to run a marathon, I'm probably fairly out of condition. So the coach would have to give me lots and lots of advice, and I would have to follow it. And by following it, I could
Yeah.
perhaps, get there. But the best coach in the world is not going to suddenly help the worst athlete in the world to immediately win the marathon, let's say.
Yeah, you've got to do the work and get better and do as you're told, basically.
Yeah,
Do
that's it.
and is it mostly public sector tenders that you work in, or is it some
So
private sector as well?
I would Yeah, I would say about 75% in the public sector and the other 25% in the private sector. The public sector have to put virtually everything out to tender, whereas the private sector don't. And their processes that they go through tend to be less rigorous than the public sector. But some of the larger private sector organisations, their procurement can feel at times a bit like the public sector.
Yeah, probably model themselves off of what the public sector do. Um, so let's go back a little bit to your entrepreneurial journey again. Tell us a little bit about, like, if you had people around you that have pushed you and inspired you or challenged you, like you mentioned a coach, did you have mentors or role models that you leaned on for
Yes,
an inspiration?
yeah. Yeah, no one person, but I would say no one person throughout, but at different points on the journey. And it's kind of interesting how the media can influence us as well, because once business shows started coming on television, I remember, I'm old enough to remember Sir John Harvey Jones, and he was like former chief exec of ICI, I think it was, and he then made a career of being a bit of a business guru that would go into failing businesses and turn them round, and that made pretty good telly in the 1980s. And I can remember watching that, and it morphed on to The Apprentice, and then to Dragon's Den. And I think
Hmm.
in Dragon's Den, I found my favorite show, and I've watched every episode of every series, I think, and um, I think that was something that kind of helped inspire me as well. And I think it helped me that I could see where businesses weren't getting off the ground properly and what they needed to have to succeed. I had quite an inspirational boss in the public sector. And he said to me, "Do you know what, Andrew?" He said, "I think your skills are better suited to the private sector." So I thought, right, that's a bit of the nudge I need to sort of move into the private sector.
Yeah, because you're somebody that you respect who backs you, who thinks that you've got what it takes.
Yes.
What would you say has been your biggest learning as a business owner, as an entrepreneur over the years?
I think the biggest learning really comes when times are very tough. And probably the story that I would tell about that is, a time that we've all been through, COVID-19. And I had a business that, when COVID-19 struck, needed £88,000 a month to break even. And we were generally getting that or more. Um, but in March 2020, my revenue was only about 45,000. And I remember I had £75,000 reserves, and I realised I think the next month it was 24,000 revenue. By August it was 18,000.
Yeah.
So I had to, with my sort of senior management team, make some very quick decisions. And my learning was that all the time, so with each of these major decisions, I could do the right thing for the business, I could do the right thing for myself personally, or I could do the right thing for the staff, for the employees. And some businesses might think, or business owners, I'll do the right thing for myself. Other ones might think, I'll do the right thing by the staff. And I thought, I'm going to do the right thing for the business. So I made the decisions that were the right ones for the business, even though they hurt me and they had impacts on some of the staff members as well. But without taking the tough decisions on, as it happened, March the 13th, 2020, if we hadn't taken these decisions then, we wouldn't have had a business. So and then all of us would have failed.
What would you say has been your biggest challenge during the years outside of COVID, but just in general, the biggest challenges that you faced as a business owner?
I think building a brand and building credibility, and that takes time. So I started this journey. I think I had about 1,500 connections on LinkedIn. I think I've now got about 24,000. So, you know, I have used LinkedIn to actually grow my brand, grow my presence. But building that credibility does take time. And particularly where we got clients that were larger organizations, sometimes, you've got to jump through more hoops to get some of these, blue chip clients
Yeah.
giving you work. But once they give you work, once you're on their roster, let's say, you can get some very good work sustained across many years, actually.
Okay, so just as a side note on that, because you mentioned LinkedIn, and LinkedIn does not get a mention on my podcasts very often. 24,000 contacts. You obviously you don't know them all personally. I mean, you wouldn't claim that you do. But what would you say to business owners and entrepreneurs that, you know, that poo-poo LinkedIn and don't give it maybe a lot of attention or credence?
Well, what I'd say is that there are certain businesses that probably don't need LinkedIn, and LinkedIn isn't necessarily the right social media for their particular business, particularly perhaps if you're in a kind of B2C, business to consumer, business.
Yeah.
Maybe Instagram's a better place to be, or something like that. But for me, in the professional services world that I exist in, then I would say nearly all of my target clients are reasonably active users of LinkedIn. Therefore, LinkedIn was where I found my tribe and found my customers, let's say, and also found my staff. I mean, I got a lot of approaches when I had my business from people that liked what they saw because I was doing a lot of LinkedIn live broadcasting. So people felt that they got to know me and they wanted to come and work for me. So what not to
Yeah.
like?
And look, if you're not on it, you definitely won't be found on it. If you are on it, you might be found by the next important connection. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's good advice. So what's the next big thing for you, Andrew, in your business? What do the next couple of years look like for you in terms of
Yes.
growth and opportunity, et cetera?
Well, what I'm doing is I've got a bit of a portfolio career now. So I'm working in an employed role 2.5 days a week as director of bids for one of my former clients of my bidding business. And they're in the digital transformation world. Stellar Omada, the business is called. It's actually owned by a chap, a youngish guy that won this year the British Business Award for Entrepreneur of the
Yeah,
Year.
well,
He's called Colin Frame. The business is based in Edinburgh. Works mainly in the banking, the retail banking and life and pensions sector, but it's going wider than that now into the public sector as well, around digital transformation. The other part of my week, I'm doing my own private consultancy clients. And I'm looking at taking on a couple of non-executive directorships as well. So there's four different companies talking to me, and I'm between me and them, I'm going to make a selection of two of them to actually go onto their board as a non-exec director.
Excellent. And what advice would you have for business owners who are just going out on their own, or would be business owners who are thinking about going out on their own? What would you say to them?
So what I'd say is if you can possibly begin by perhaps running this alongside your employed role. So maybe you're able to scale back your employed role to 3 or 4 days a week and begin your business at 1 or 2 days a week. That way, that could be good. Alternatively, if you've got a lump of cash, either savings or inheritance or redundancy or something like that, where you've got a bit of money, because the early stages of most businesses, usually the first 6 months, there's going to be some costs. There's maybe not going to be so much money coming in while you get this machine up and running or get the airplane off the ground. So you are going to need cash. A lot of businesses fail in the early stages because the owners just run out of money. So, and be careful about debt because yes, debt could be a possibility, investment could be a possibility, but I would say just tread carefully with that as well. I managed to
Yeah.
grow my business to 1.2 million pounds a year turnover. It was profitable every year. I had no debt, no external investment, no bad debt either. So that worked for me in my business model, but not all businesses are like that. Some businesses do need to have investment or debt to actually start.
So it would be a good idea to understand and manage your finances well. Debt,
Definitely.
cash
And
flow.
and and get help with that as well. If
Yeah.
if that's not your thing, then definitely get help because that's the lifeblood of the business, actually, that money coming in and going out and flowing around the business.
That's brilliant. Well, Andrew, look, we've come to the end of our time, but I know time flies quickly. But thank you very much. Like I've got some really good notes here, and I think people watching this will definitely take some things away to think about. And if anybody's watching this who needs a bid expert, I take it they can. I'll post your LinkedIn profile. Is that the best way to get in touch with you then?
Absolutely. And I also have some very good freelancers work with me as well.
Excellent. Well, we'll be posting that for sure. But just want to say thank you very much for giving us your time and being on the show today. And thanks to all of our listeners and viewers for tuning into the Founders Chair as always. Always more to come. But just to say thank you once again to Andrew Morrison, Bid Expert, for being on the Founders Chair. Andrew, thanks again.